April 30th, 1975. Dawn broke over Saigon, a city steeped in uncertainty and fear. The North Vietnamese army was at the city's edge. Years of war, of bloodshed and sacrifice were culminating in this final fateful moment. For the South Vietnamese, a sense of betrayal hung heavy in the air. The promise of American support, once a beacon of hope, had dwindled to a flickering ember. Desperate crowds thronged the streets, their faces etched with anxiety. The thud of distant artillery fire served as a grim metronome counting down to the inevitable. The South Vietnamese government, its authority crumbling, braced for the final assault. The American presence, once so pervasive, was reduced to a skeleton crew at the US Embassy. Tank columns rumbled through the streets, their progress marked by the clatter of gunfire. Panic seized Saigon. Helicopters whirred overhead, ferrying evacuees to waiting aircraft carriers offshore. For countless others, left behind in the maelstrom, the future was a terrifying unknown. The fall of Saigon was not a sudden cataclysm. It was the culmination of years of political maneuvering and military escalation. The seeds of defeat were sown long before the North Vietnamese tanks rolled into the South Vietnamese capital. To understand the events of April 30th, 1975, one must rewind the clock to 1973 and the signing of the Paris Peace Accords. The Paris Peace Accords, intended to bring an end to the Vietnam War, proved to be a fragile truce. The agreement called for a ceasefire and the withdrawal of US troops from Vietnam. However, it failed to address the deep-seated divisions that fueled the conflict. The North Vietnamese, determined to reunite their country under communist rule, saw the accords as a tactical victory. The South Vietnamese government, weakened by internal strife and reliant on dwindling American aid, faced an increasingly precarious future. The North Vietnamese, emboldened by the shifting balance of power, launched a massive offensive in 1975. The South Vietnamese army, outmatched and outmaneuvered, offered little resistance. The rapid collapse of the South Vietnamese government stunned the world. The Vietnam War, once hailed as a noble crusade, ended in a humiliating defeat. Operation Frequent Wind. It was the largest helicopter evacuation in history, a frantic scramble to airlift American citizens and at-risk Vietnamese from the collapsing South Vietnamese capital. As North Vietnamese troops closed in on Saigon, the US Embassy became a beacon of hope for thousands seeking to escape the communist advance. Helicopters, their rotors churning the humid air, ferried evacuees from the embassy compound to waiting aircraft carriers offshore. Marines, their faces etched with fatigue and tension, struggled to maintain order as a surging tide of humanity pressed against the embassy gates. Time was running out. The North Vietnamese were closing in, their artillery fire growing closer by the hour. The order was given to evacuate only American citizens. Vietnamese allies who had risked their lives alongside American forces pleaded for a place on the departing helicopters. Many were turned away, their pleas drowned out by the din of the evacuation. The last American helicopter lifted off from the embassy roof on April 30th, 1975, just hours before North Vietnamese tanks crashed through the gates. Thousands were left behind, their fates uncertain in the aftermath of the communist victory. Section 4. The unfathomable toll counting the human cost. The Vietnam War cast a long shadow over Southeast Asia, leaving an indelible mark on the region and its people. The human cost of the conflict was staggering. Millions of lives were lost or irrevocably shattered. Vietnam, Laos and Cambodia, the three countries most directly impacted by the war, bore the brunt of the casualties. Estimates vary, but it is believed that between 2 and 4 million Vietnamese civilians perished during the conflict. The war also exacted a heavy toll on the United States. Over 58,000 American service members made the ultimate sacrifice in the jungles and rice paddies of Vietnam. The true cost of the Vietnam War extends far beyond the battlefield. Section 5. A sea of refugees fleeing a shattered homeland. The fall of Saigon triggered one of the largest refugee crises in modern history. Over 1 million Vietnamese, fearing persecution from the victorious communist regime, fled their homeland in the years following the war. They embarked on perilous journeys, risking their lives on overcrowded boats and in makeshift refugee camps in search of a new life free from fear and oppression. The boat people, as they became known, faced unimaginable hardships. They braved treacherous seas, often in rickety vessels, ill-equipped for long voyages. Many perished at sea, victims of storms, pirates, or exhaustion. The international community responded with a mixture of compassion and apprehension. The United States accepted the largest number of refugees, resettling hundreds of thousands in communities across the country. Section 6. A Reckoning for America, the war's impact on foreign policy. The Vietnam War left an enduring legacy on American foreign policy. It forced a reassessment of the nation's role in the world, its willingness to intervene militarily in foreign conflicts, and its relationship with the developing world. The war's shadow continues to shape American foreign policy debates to this day. The Vietnam Syndrome, a term coined to describe the nation's reluctance to engage in protracted foreign entanglements, became a defining feature of American foreign policy in the decades following the war. The war also forced a reassessment of the domino theory, the Cold War-era belief that the fall of one Southeast Asian nation to communism would inevitably lead to the collapse of neighboring countries. The Vietnam War also highlighted the limitations of American military power. The conflict demonstrated that military might alone was not sufficient to achieve political victory. Section 7. Scars of War, Seeds of Remembrance, the Oregon-Vietnam War Memorial. Nestled amidst the rolling hills of Oregon, the Oregon-Vietnam War Memorial stands as a solemn tribute to the sacrifices of those who served in Southeast Asia. Dedicated on November 23, 2024, the memorial serves as a place of remembrance, reflection, and healing for veterans' families and a nation grappling with the legacy of a divisive war. A towering wall etched with the names of 790 Oregonians who lost their lives in the conflict serves as a stark reminder of the war's human cost. At the heart of the memorial stands A Soldier's Return, a bronze sculpture depicting a weary soldier returning home from war. The sculpture captures the emotional toll of war, the invisible wounds that many veterans carried with them long after the guns